Hey guys, welcome back to the Vegan Foodie Girl, and today we are going to use up a heap of our leftover Okara and make low carb bagels. I love a good bagel for breakfast, and I love a recipe that uses up all that leftover Okara, and this recipe does both. These bagels are just as chewy and bready and delicious as regular bagels, but using Okara makes them super low in carbs, so you can have a guilt-free bagel for breakfast every morning. So let's get started. Welcome back, guys. Like the intro said, today we're going to be making Okara bagels. This is part of my Okara series because anyone that makes soy milk knows that you have so much Okara pulp left. Okara pulp is high in fibre, it's got good amount of protein, it's actually really good for you, so just turfing it in the bin or the compost is such a waste, guys. These bagels are delicious. Most importantly, these are a low carb version of bagels, so for anyone out there worried about carbohydrate, these are the bagels for you. They also have much more fibre than a normal bagel. So using Okara instead of just using flour in your bagels means that we drop the carbohydrate count and we increase the fibre count. These are really simple, really quick, and absolutely delicious. To make our Okara bagels, you will need 300 grams of Okara. Just make sure that it's fresh, so you've made a batch of tofu or a batch of soy milk, and then just make sure that you put the Okara through a food processor so it's really fine, and then cook it in the microwave for about 3 minutes. That cooks out some of the moisture, but also ensures that we've got fully cooked Okara in our bagels. So 300 grams of Okara. We will need 275 grams of plain flour. Doesn't have to be bread flour, but if you've got that, that's a great option. We will need 130 grams of silken tofu. I haven't drained it particularly well. I'll drain a bit more liquid off that. We're going to need 2 teaspoons of instant yeast, 2 tablespoons of sugar, and 1 teaspoon of salt. So that's for the bagels themselves. To boil the bagels before we bake them in the oven, we will need a tablespoon of brown sugar and 1 tablespoon of bicarb of soda. This recipe couldn't be simpler. We're going to pop all our dry ingredients first into a food processor and just pulse it a couple of times to combine it. So in goes our flour, in goes our salt, in goes our sugar, in goes our dried yeast. Just going to pulse that for a couple of seconds just to mix it. Now I am going to pop in my Okara. You've recently cooked it in the microwave. Just make sure that you allow it to cool down a little bit. We don't want it too hot because if it's over about 38, 40 degrees, it's going to kill all your yeast. In goes our silken tofu. And now we're going to pulse that to combine it. It's come together in a bit of a ball. This is your sign that it's time to knead it. You can knead it by hand on the bench. If you do that, just sprinkle a little bit of flour down to stop it sticking. I'm not going to knead it by hand. I'm going to knead it in my food processor for about 7 to 10 minutes. We want it soft and we want it pliable. The dough's been kneading for about 10 minutes now, so I'm going to turn it out just onto a floured area. I'm going to cover it and I'm just going to let it sit for about 10 minutes just to rest that gluten that's started to form. So depending on how much moisture was in your Okara or your silken tofu will depend on how sticky your dough is. You may need to flour the surface, you may need to flour your fingers. Turn out our dough. Make sure you get all of that lovely dough out. just going to form him into a ball, and I've got this beautiful soft and supple dough. So that's now going to rest, just covered for about 10 minutes, and then we'll be forming it into balls, resting it again, and then forming it into the bagels, allowing them to sort of double in size, then we'll be cooking them. Dough has been resting for about 10 minutes. Now we're going to shape it into balls. I like reasonably sized bagels, so I shape mine into about 5 or 6. So I'm going to do this lot into 6, so it's about 125 grams. You can see why I have to measure them, because I cannot tell by eye. If you like smaller bagels, just make them into about sort of 8 bagels. Now we're going to roll them into balls. And instead of just rolling on the bench, give them a good squeeze and start to fold them in on each other. So just folding them in, and then flip him over, roll him into a ball, pinch him together. And we're going to sit him on the bench. And these are going to rest for about another 5 to 10 minutes before we shape them into our bagels. Not having to be too fussy at this stage, but definitely putting them in on themselves, stretching that skin a little bit, working that gluten. Give them a roll, pinch them together, sit them down. I'm going to cover those, rest them for 10 minutes, and then we're going to come back and we're going to form our bagels. While you're waiting for your balls to rest, get yourself a tray prepared. So this just has baking paper on it, and I've just really floured it, okay? Because you don't want your bagels to stick to your tray. Depending on how many bagels you've made will depend on whether you need to flour 1 or 2 trays. I find 1 tray fits about 5 or 6 decent sized bagels. You don't want them touching when you put them onto the tray, because they're going to rise and they're going to spread, and you don't want them joining together. So I'm actually going to get another tray ready. Our balls have been resting for about 10 minutes, and it's time to form our bagels. I find the simplest way to form our bagels, nor my cat on its scratching post right now, is to take one of your balls and gently start to roll it into a log. Now, working really gently with the dough, because remember, this isn't an entirely flour-based dough, so you need to work with care at this stage. So gently just rolling it into a log. And then when you get the desired length you want, because some people like a bigger hole in the middle of their bagel, I don't like too big a hole because I find my fillings fall through it, then we're going to form the actual bagel. So you can see I've done some here, and the easiest way to do it is to make a spoon with one end of your log, bring the other end around and fold the spoon over. Done. So gently roll your ball, and your dough will feel quite puffy at this stage. Gently working our dough. And then making a spoon shape with one end, bringing the other end round and just folding it over. Squish them together, and that's your bagel done. rolling our dough into a log. I love finding ways to use up Okara. It's such a valuable ingredient. And anytime you can make a bagel lower carb, I'm going to take it. A little bit less guilty when I'm having bagels for breakfast every day. These are delicious with miso cream cheese. There's a recipe up on the channel for the miso cream cheese, and that too uses Okara. Another way to use up what is essentially a waste product. Making our spoon, bringing him round, folding him over, squishing him together. Now is the time to be patient. We need to let the gluten rest, we need to let them rise a little bit. That can take, depending on how warm your kitchen is, anywhere from an hour to 6 hours. I like to just cover mine with a kitchen towel, and then I pop them into the oven just with the oven light on, because where I live it's quite cold and it is winter now, and I just don't feel like there's enough warmth in the kitchen to let them rise effectively. So I'll literally just pop them into the oven now with the oven light on. That'll provide a bit of warmth, and in a few hours I will notice that they'll go sort of puffy and they will have grown in size a little bit, and that's our indication it's time to cook them. Our bagels have been resting for about an hour now in my oven just with the oven light on, and they've gone beautifully puffy and risen in size, and so now it's time for the next step. We're going to pop the oven on to about 220 degrees Celsius, and we're going to pop some water on to boil. Look at these gorgeous puffy bagels. Our brown sugar and our bicarb that we had before is ready to go into the water. So popping bicarb and brown sugar into our boiling water. We're then going to boil our bagels for about 15 to 20 seconds each side. Now, they're going to be very soft and puffy, so just handle them with care. And you will see that your bagels will float. That's your sign that they're ready. We're going to pop a couple in. We're going to let them float on this side for about 15 to 20 seconds. Then I'm going to turn them over, just watch it doesn't boil over, and then I'm going to pop them back on the tray, just making sure that there's lots of flour still on the tray. This is what gives your bagels that beautiful skin. So don't skip this step, guys. You need to boil them in order to get that lovely bagel skin. Once they're boiled, they're going to go into the oven for about 15 to 20 minutes, depending on your oven. I'm going to pop the last 3 into the water. They smell delicious already. It smells like a bakery in here. Beautifully bready. About 15 to 20 seconds each side. Now, if you want to put sprinkles on your bagels like sesame seeds or poppy seeds or some everything bagel seasoning, the time to do it is as soon as you take them out of the water. I don't like seeds on my bagels, but if you want to sprinkle some seeds on, as soon as you take them out of the water, sprinkle the seeds on while the bagels are still wet. We want our oven hot because we want them to cook quite quickly, but because they've got Okara in them, they will brown quickly too, so just keep an eye on it. And like I said, depending on your oven will depend on the temperature. Mine, I set my oven at about 220 because it runs a little bit cold, but if you've got an oven that runs a bit hot, set it at about 200. And I'm now going to pop these into the oven. My timer's gone off. I've turned them in the oven so that they brown evenly. They're all cooked. I can tell they're cooked because they're golden brown all over, and when I touch them, they're firm. So I'm going to get them out of the oven now, and we're going to pop them on a wire rack just to get cool. Be really careful when you're getting them off the tray because they will be super hot. Now, if you haven't had enough flour on your paper, they're going to stick a little bit, so just make sure that you gently peel them off. And how delicious do these lower carb Okara bagels look? You need to let them completely cool before slicing into them. like any other form of bread, you want the steam that's in there to finish cooking your bagel properly. So pop them on a tray and restrain yourself. When they're nice and cold, you can slice them, lather them in cream cheese, a few capers, a sprinkle of everything bagel seasoning, and they are delicious. The other thing that's really great about these bagels is they freeze exceptionally well. So you can cook a big batch of them, store them in the freezer when you want one for breakfast or for a brunch, get it out, microwave it for a few seconds to defrost it, and then just chuck it in the toaster and toast it up. In order to freeze them, once they're cool, you want to get your bagel and you want to slice it and open it. Because if you just freeze it whole, you'll never be able to cut through it when it's frozen. So slice it in half and then pop a little bit of baking paper between each layer and then chuck them in a Ziploc bag in the freezer. That way, when you want to get one out for breakfast, you can just easily pull it apart because you've got that little piece of baking paper in the center. And I reuse the bag and I reuse the baking paper. So I'm going to let these cool, then I'm going to eat one for brunch, and then the rest are going to go into the freezer. I really hope you enjoy the recipe and the bagels. It gives you another way to use up your Okara, and it gives you an option for a lower carb bagel. So I'll see you next time. Hopefully you've enjoyed the video, guys. If you have, please give it a like and subscribe, and I'll see you back in the Vegan Foodie Girl kitchen next time.